John Lacossi here, InternetMarketingExperience.com with Philip Nicolosi, JD of InternetLegalArmor.com. Today we are going to talk about sponsored reviews, sponsored endorsements, social media influencers. Phil, can you define those for us?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of a broad terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in essence, all we're saying here is you've got to be careful as a company, as an owner of the company, or as a manager, or someone that's looking over company affairs, or as an affiliate. In the opposite spectrum, as an affiliate for the company, you've got to be careful about the product endorsements and reviews that you leave to the general public in terms of disclosing what you need to disclose under the law. So when you use these broad terms, social media influencer, product endorsements, really we're lumping those into a broad term of disclosure. What is it that I have to disclose as either an affiliate or as a company or as an employee of the company to avoid the wrath of the FTC? So all of it is going to be centrally focused on the proper disclosures that you need to make. So just to kind of just give a segue into that, give
Sure.
the basics there.
Well, so let's trickle this down to small business.
Sure.
Let's say I own a restaurant. Let's say I invite somebody in that is a friend of mine on Facebook, and I give them a free meal, and they want to leave a review. The concept that you just defined, does it apply to that particular person because they just got something for free?
Yeah, I mean, and so in the scenario you described, would the person be
Mm-hmm.
an affiliate or someone that goes on and leaves? You're saying as a customer that
As
would
a
do that?
customer, yeah,
Oh,
potential customer.
no, as a potential customer,
Mm-hmm.
they're not considered a sponsored endorser.
Okay.
There's a big difference between what a sponsored endorser is and
Mm-hmm.
what anybody else. I mean, you or I, we can always go, and that's a great question because
Mm-hmm.
there's a distinction, obviously, and that's at the crux of the matter here. And what we're trying to get across to you, the audience, is, you know, whether you're running a business or whether you're promoting products for somebody else, again, what are your main responsibilities? As a consumer, you have no responsibilities. You can freely review sites, review products, go to a restaurant, as you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, and go on Yelp and say it was a bad meal, it was a great meal. Now, if you give that person a meal for free with the express purpose of him or her leaving that review, and that's sort of, and yeah, I mean, I want to be accurate here.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, you can't, give somebody anything for free with the anticipation that they're going to go and give a positive review. I would argue at that point they would be considered to be an affiliate. But now, if someone came into your restaurant and you just happened to give them a free meal because you knew them and they just went and gave their genuine,
Mm-hmm.
no, they wouldn't be considered to be a positive endorsement in my mind. That they wouldn't be considered to be a third party reviewer that would need to disclose that there's a material connection there, because I don't think there would be. It more comes into play again with affiliates and social media influencers. So, as a consumer, I don't know that you have much to worry
Mm-hmm.
about.
Yeah.
That's really not, and more accurately, as a business owner, giving, in your scenario, in your example, giving somebody something for free. Again, all I'm saying is, as long as it's irrelevant to a review that they happen to make, in the future, as long as it's not agreed upon that, hey, I'm going to give you something for free and you go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and make this review. Well, that's totally different. I think what you're asking me is, if I just happen to go give a review and I happen to get something for free, no, I wouldn't be so concerned as a business owner there. But again, I think you understand what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
which is, don't solicit that. Don't say, hey, I'm going to give you free meals in exchange for a positive review about my restaurant. That's something you want to stay
Right.
away from.
Right. That's interesting because I mean, one might imagine that's probably happened before, right? Because reviews are a big thing right now in internet marketing for businesses, and people want more good reviews.
Yeah.
So you probably would believe that people are doing that right now, and they shouldn't.
Well, if they are, then I'll take back what I said, because it would be considered to be a sponsored endorsement. But again, in
Mm-hmm.
the example you gave me,
Yep.
all I'm trying to get across to you, the business owner, is, don't be afraid of, if you gave somebody a free meal and all of a sudden they just ended up giving you a positive review, but you didn't discuss the fact that you were going to give them a free meal because they just
Right.
liked the meal and they gave their honest opinion. I
Right.
wouldn't be concerned about that. The whole point here is to be concerned about what your affiliates and what
Mm-hmm.
your paid sponsored endorsers and what your employees are saying about your products or your services.
Mm-hmm.
And the other main point is, has on the opposite side of the spectrum, has an affiliate, What is it that I'm doing or not doing, that may get me in hot water with the FTC, again, in terms of disclosures. So, and I think we should divide it into those two groups:
Yep.
businesses, of course, and business owners, and the
Yeah.
people that run businesses, and
Yeah.
then the affiliates.
Well, let's bring it into the tech world. I mean, I have a development company, and I develop a coded product, and I'm looking to bring on new affiliates. And in exchange for their review, I give them free access to the product. Frowned upon, good, what precautions they need to take? How would you put that, Phil?
Well, it's not frowned upon. It's not illegal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can give anybody anything for free or induce
Mm-hmm.
anyone to leave you a review. That's the problem, though. Any kind of a positive review, the general public needs to be aware of whether your review is tainted or not, whether your
Correct.
review has been influenced by consideration of some sort. So, the whole problem with why you see a lot of these social media influencers and lately a lot of these businesses coming under scrutiny is because it's the consideration, and we'll get into that in a second, the consideration is not being disclosed. So it's not the act of giving a review in exchange for anything in of itself. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with me. I'm the owner of Internet Legal Armor. There's nothing wrong with me reaching out to my affiliates and saying, I'm going to give you free access to Internet Legal Armor in exchange for your review. Now, it is illegal if I say it's a clear violation of the FTC Act if I say I'm going to give you something in exchange for your positive review, and that's what I expect. Clearly, that's not only against common sense, but you can't tell people, I'm going, please, go against what you may actually feel and go give me a positive review. That's deception. That's a clear violation of Section 5. So let's make a distinction, right? And the distinction is,
I think that's important.
well, it's very important. I mean, it's not that you can't do it. Of
So
course, you can do it, and you can have affiliates, and you can have them. And it's important to understand the various nuances because as business owners, you're wondering what I can get away with and what I can't. And not because you want to get away with anything, but you just don't want to get in trouble for doing things you shouldn't be doing. And again, we're talking about interstate commerce, okay? This conversation is limited to the FTC and interstate commerce. So people like you that have an interstate focus with your business and affiliates, which are clearly going to be promoting goods across the internet, right? So there are similar state laws that govern this kind of thing, but for purposes of this conversation today, we're talking about the FTC Act, and specifically, we're talking about Section 5 of the FTC Act. And Section 5 basically says that you cannot have any kind of material deception, and the actual term is materially misleading. So it's just deception. You cannot deceive, and that's a very broad term. So what the FTC says is when you make these product reviews and when you make these endorsements, you just have to disclose whether or not you're receiving compensation to do that. So it's the lack of disclosure of any compensation. Consideration is probably a more accurate word because, again, as you pointed out, you just asked me about free stuff. So it's the lack of disclosure of any consideration that you may be getting in exchange for the review. And we use the word in exchange loosely. It may not technically be in exchange for the review, but in connection with the review. If you're not disclosing that you've received some kind of consideration, that is what's illegal. That is what's against Section 5 of the FTC Act. And that's a big distinction to make because, of course, you can have affiliates and, of course, you can have people leave you reviews that are positive. But those reviews really better be based on their own experiences and they better be true. They better not be lies. And if they are getting something in exchange for those reviews, whether it be something for free, because that's, and I said we'll get to that. Well, consideration could be something for free. So you're giving somebody value by giving them free access to a program, right? A software program, or like with me, an Internet Legal Armor, if I wanted to give you free access for a year or whatever to try out the program, you must disclose that because technically that could very well influence your judgment to make a positive review or not. And it's not that you would make that review. And again, we're talking about positive reviews.
Right.
If it's a negative review, the whole point of this conversation is if I know someone is my affiliate or I know I have an employee, and of course they're going to make a positive review, as long as it's truthful, what do I have to disclose?
Yeah.
So in connection with these positive reviews, we're talking about consideration, not necessarily compensation. So the question you asked me is a very good one because even free stuff,
Mhm.
if they're sending you a game console and you're an affiliate that reviews, PlayStations, or Nintendo Wii's or whatever, and you write positive reviews, well, you've got to disclose that you received from Nintendo, a free game console, or from PlayStation a free game console, or even if they give it to you for a limited amount of time, to me that's still valid consideration. You got to use it. Of course, that's not as elevated as getting something for free that you can keep,
Mhm.
but that's all considered consideration. Okay, not necessarily compensation, but consideration. And the basic rule is that you, me, whoever is reading these reviews, assuming
Mhm.
they're positive, well, I want to know that that's your actual thoughts. I want to
Right.
know that you really believe that.
Mhm.
It's important for me as a consumer to understand that that review, positive review, is not biased or tainted. Um, so the FTC says, fine, you can make it, but just make sure that you, the consumer, are aware of whatever you've been given in exchange for the review. Along those lines, are you an employee of the company? You can't go on your personal Facebook page as an employee, and this is a big no-no too. And I tell my clients, don't have your employees go on their personal Facebook pages and talk up the products and then not disclose that I'm an employee of the company.
Ah.
All that stuff can land you in hot water.
Mhm.
So that's the basic premise behind what a sponsored endorsement is. I don't even think we've even used that term yet. A
Yeah.
sponsored endorsement is really what we're talking about here.
Right.
So, and you've probably heard that term yourself, when you read these articles about social media
Mhm.
influencers. So what we're saying is that if you make a positive review, it's an endorsement, and if it's sponsored, meaning if you've gotten
Gotten paid.
or consideration of some form,
Mhm.
way, shape, or another, some form of consideration elevates that review. And again, you asked me in the beginning about maybe just getting a free meal and
Mhm.
going and liking the restaurant, liking the meal, and
Mhm.
as long as it was not exchanged for the
Yeah.
review,
Got it.
there's really no obligation to disclose because in my mind, I'm not receiving anything in exchange for that review. Shift over to affiliates or anyone with a material connection, which is
Mhm.
another term that we use. They're sponsored endorsers. Anytime you're a sponsored endorser, you have to make a disclosure as to what the sponsorship is, what the affiliation is. That's called a material connection. Material connections must be disclosed. It's important as a business owner to understand that your affiliates need to make these disclosures. Your employees need to make these disclosures. And when you're an affiliate, you have to understand that you yourself are on the hook to make these disclosures. Now, the important thing is, as a business owner, you're actually on the hook for the sponsored endorsements made by third parties. So you can't, it's not the Wild West where I have no control over what my affiliates may say.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter. The FTC makes you responsible for what they say.
If they're talking about your product.
Absolutely. Comes back on you just as much as it comes back on the sponsored endorser.
So, Phil, let's do another example. So, I mean, let's say I'm a small business owner and I reach out to a celebrity and I ask them to endorse my product in exchange for payment.
Celebrity
A
influencer.
celebrity influencer. Um, do they need to define within their social media post or however they're being paid to endorse the product, do they need to define that they received payment for that post?
Yes, absolutely.
What if I send that person free product and say it would be great if you left a review?
Yeah, they have to disclose
They'd
the
have to
fact that
disclose, hey, I got these free products. They're really cool.
if it's a positive review, but let's look at Instagram and Twitter.
Mhm.
What the FTC has basically said is you don't have to have a long disclosure in the social media post itself,
Mhm.
but you better at least have a hashtag that says sponsored endorsement.
Mhm.
You've got to have that.
Something.
You've got to have some disclosure that hey, this is a material connection. This is a sponsored endorsement. So you've got to include hashtags in your Instagram posts and your Twitter posts that indicate and disclose basically that you are a sponsored endorser. Um, but you must disclose the material connection. But of course, the FTC kind of understands the point of these social media posts is brevity. So as long as with regard specifically to posts, and Instagram, Twitter, as long as you've got a hashtag that says, sponsored endorsement, okay, that's probably the safest one to use. That's the way you do it, and that's good enough for the FTC. But again, yeah, if you get something for free, you better disclose that it's sponsored.
So this is something that celebrities should probably know too, or those that actually take payment for. Is there any liability that could fall on them as the actual person that posts, besides bad publicity that they didn't disclose?
Well,
Or is all the liability held on the business side?
well, it's both.
It's both.
I mean,
Okay.
sure, you violate Section 5. I mean, they're the ones that are making the representation. And all I'm simply saying is that the ones you're making the endorsements on behalf of, the sponsors, they're also just as liable as you are as the endorser. They're on the hook for your malfeasance. So yeah, the celebrity influencers would be in trouble because they're not making the required disclosures, and they have to do that. It's a violation of Section 5 of the FTC Act, and so they're both in trouble. I mean, the sponsors and the celebrities, and you see it with I think Kardashian was a good example recently. I think it was some kind of gummy vitamin you could take that did something with your hair. And I'm not sure which one it was, Kylie or the other one, and they weren't using the required hashtags that notified people that were reading these reviews that they were sponsored, and they were receiving free products essentially from the company to give these reviews. And I'm pretty sure they were receiving free product. It might have been paid, but either way, whether it's free or paid, they actually were in hot water. I think it was Kylie was in hot water for not making that required hashtag on her Instagram and Twitter posts. And so you've got to do that. As a celebrity, you can get hot water, and as a sponsor, you can also be on the hook.
So, Phil, let's switch gears a little bit underneath this same cloud. A lot of us in the development world are familiar with a website by the name of Fiverr, Fiverr.com.
Yeah,
And
I've used it.
well, there's such a wide variety of services available through Fiverr. One of them is targeting startups. Okay, so startups can go on Fiverr for $5 and basically pay somebody in exchange for a review. Obviously, there's nobody on the side of Fiverr that's preventing them from posting that service. However, as somebody that would be looking to buy that service, I mean, yes, it's somewhat, it seems deceiving in my opinion, based on the fact that you're paying somebody just to get a review. I mean, that is the whole point of buying the gig, would be to get the review. What are your thoughts on that?
I wasn't aware of this. So John, you're saying that you're aware on Fiverr that people can actually solicit paid reviews, essentially, and they're going to be positive, of course. So you'll leave.
Well,
So I'll pay someone on Fiverr to go leave a review for my products or services, and I pay that person to leave a positive review, essentially on
absolutely.
Yelp or wherever.
Well, the whole purpose on a place like Fiverr is for sellers to offer a service that'll get purchased, right? That way they make money. So one thing that's hot right now for small businesses is to have more reviews.
Sure.
So it's very easy to go to a place like Fiverr and buy a gig that says I'll leave a review for $5 and purchase it, and then do that, rinse and repeat 5 to 10 times or more. So
You want to talk about good reviews?
well, I would imagine that they're paying for good reviews. Yes.
Huh. I wasn't aware of that. And yeah, that's very problematic.
Why is it problematic?
Well, first of all, I doubt that.
I know that it is problematic, but I just want you to define it as an attorney.
I want two fronts. I mean, first of all, I don't imagine they're actually experiencing and using the products and services they're promoting. So that's deceptive in of itself. I mean, you're not even you're claiming to the general public that I've tried this product, I've used this product, I've had this service, whatever it is, and it's great, but you haven't. Right. You're lying. That's deceit. That's a clear violation. Beyond that, I think it's problematic because I'm sure they're not disclosing that they've gotten paid to do it.
Yeah.
They would have to disclose the fact that I'm a paid reviewer, or I'm a paid affiliate, I'm a sponsored endorser. Somehow, some way, they have to disclose that fact. I don't know, where they're leaving these reviews at.
Yeah.
Again, you can use hashtags with social media posts, but if they're not, and I'm sure they're not, but if they're not disclosing the fact they've been paid, again, they've received compensation. They've received a material connection in exchange for their review. That's clearly a sponsored endorsement, which clearly needs to be disclosed. If they're not doing it, that's a big problem. And not only, and this is a great example because, and I wasn't aware of it, but not only are they violating the law, but again, as I mentioned, it's probably the third time I've mentioned it, you're on the hook as a business owner, as a sponsor, you're on the hook. So you've got to be careful. Now you've got hundreds of these fake endorsements that you've basically paid to have, posted across the internet. Not only is that deceptive, but without any kind of disclosure, again, I think it's deceptive because I'm assuming they're not trying the products.
Right.
But the point of this conversation is to talk about sponsored endorsements and the required FTC disclosure.
Mhm.
So beyond all that,
Right.
are they disclosing anything? I would assume no. And here's the big lesson: if you're paying anyone on Fiverr or any of these other services, freelance forums to do similar things, you better make sure they're doing it.
Hmm.
And you better make that part of your contract, and you better make sure they're obviously trying your products and services. It's a terrible idea,
Yeah.
and focusing back to the disclosure end of it, without a sponsored endorsement, it's not going to work.
Right. Well, Phil, what if as a business you actually hired somebody to do social media postings for your company?
That's fine.
Does that fall underneath this? Do we need to have it, or do we need to be aware of anything when we go into that? Is there some best practices? Is that person considered a sponsored endorser?
Yes.
Okay.
Now you're talking about when you're, well, not if it's not a genuine third party review. No,
Okay.
it's got to be a genuine third party review.
So let's say somebody hired my company to do their social media postings for them. I'm just posting the post about their business. I'm not actually leaving reviews. That's not a sponsored endorser, right?
Right.
Okay. So it actually has to be more along the lines of, you're paying somebody to do a review. In that case, it would be a sponsored endorsement. Got it. So people that are just hiring companies to do social media for them, they don't have to worry about that.
Right.
Got it.
Right. As long as they're not reviewing themselves directly.
As long as they're not reviewing.
In their own name, which I get your point. Your point is
Yep.
they're being hired just to post things on behalf of the company. No,
Right.
it's not a sponsored endorsement.
John Lacossi and Phil Nicolosi, please tune into our channel here for the next program coming soon, and we will catch you later.
Thanks for tuning in.